Coach Show here coming to you live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, all of those channels. And you know what to do. Kimberly's already on it. She says hello from Charlotte, North Carolina. So wherever you're watching from, wherever you're tuning in from, please put it into the chat. Now, we know from evidence of talking to you as we go to conferences that a lot of y'all are watching, but you don't put anything in the chat. So we know that you're watching because you tell us. And then you send us text messages after the show and say, that was a great guest. So make sure you just put it in there and let us know that you're watching. We're looking forward to having a great, honest discussion tonight. And as many of you know who've been watching over the last few weeks, we're doing this series on Project 2025 because you all know it is election season. And as we're into election season, we want all of our viewers, and whether you're a viewer or you're listening to this on a podcast, whether that's Spotify or Apple or Google or wherever you get your podcast from, we want you just to be informed. We want you to be an informed voter. We want you to know what's out there, what is at risk, and all these types of things. So we're bringing this whole series of Project 2025. And we look at it mostly from a financial standpoint, but there's a lot in there. And tonight we're going to be talking about some of the proposed changes in the Department of Labor portions of Project 2025. In particular, we're going to hone in on some of the DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives, and those type of things. So I want to say hello to Alice Martin, who is tuned in. Thank you for being here tonight. So we're going to just dive into some of that. And so we're going to move fairly quick. We're not going to keep you up too late tonight. We're going to get right into it. So before we do that, let me bring on your favorite co-host, Miss Michelle Mitchell. Michelle, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Tony?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. It's a great. The fall is in the air in the Carolinas now.
Is it?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Okay.
It's starting to be a little bit cool. The trees are turning. A little few leaves are falling off. So I like the season. But you know what I love about it, Michelle, is that it ain't gonna be a whole lot colder than it is. Right.
It's not gonna get a whole lot cooler. Right.
Yeah, because when I was in Michigan a couple weeks ago, it was just flat out cold. I'm like, it was in the 40s. It was in the 40s at night.
At night, yeah.
And
that's how it is in the fall.
When I got off the plane, I'm like, where is my coat? Where is my coat?
Yeah.
And of course, you know, it's like when you're in Ben Harbor, I'm in Muskegon, you know, you got that lake effect stuff too. And it was windy and raining. So, but you know. But yet it was still good.
But it's nice during the day.
Yeah, it was. and you know, it's not too hot and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So Michelle, this is what happened a week ago. A week ago today was the debate.
It seems like forever ago, but yes, a week ago.
No, it was only 1 week ago, but it seems like it was an eternity.
Yeah.
You watched the debate?
Yes. By your prompting, I watched the full debate.
You watched the full debate?
I did.
Was there a moment in the debate that stood out to you?
I really enjoyed Kamala Harris's facial expressions. Yes, because you know, when you got people saying crazy stuff, like, you know.
I know, like, I mean, and you know what everybody's talking about, the whole eating the cats and dogs.
Yes,
right?
yes.
That was the big news.
Yeah, but it's serious though. These people in that community are hurting, you know, they're afraid.
Well, what's interesting about that is, of course, the next day on Wednesday, I go to the radio station. And the particular radio station I go to is owned by Kathy Hughes, but she owns the building. And she also owns the conservative radio station. when I say conservative radio station, this radio station was the one that used to carry Rush Limbaugh. So that gives you
Mm,
an idea.
mhm.
And as I was walking through the hall, they were just talking about she was so contentious, and they were like, and I was like, it's kind of really different twists as
Mhm.
depending on which side of the aisle you sit on,
Yeah.
how you felt about her reactions.
Mhm.
And I love the fact one of the things that she said was that you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me.
Yeah.
I thought that was a classic moment.
Yeah, that
Um,
was.
that
Yeah.
was one of them. Timothy Day, thank you for being here from Durham, North Carolina. And so then on Thursday last week, I went to a Kamala
Yes.
Harris rally.
Yes, you did.
And I thought it was very interesting. I crowd watched a lot, right? So
Mhm.
just like who's here, um, and they recognized my little Radio One name badge, let me go sit with the press and all this stuff.
Uh-huh.
I had a really good seat.
You did.
I had a really good seat, and just the energy that was there. And as I was talking to some of the residents that's near Bojangles Stadium, and they were just talking about the difference of because former President Trump had a rally there maybe about a month before or a few
Mhm.
weeks before, just the difference in the energy of the crowd and that
Mhm.
type of thing. And so I thought it was very interesting and to see the people who were there that were supporting her. And I really felt like, and I don't know, and maybe even our guests might have some idea, but as I scanned the crowd, I think the crowd was made up of primarily Caucasian women.
Really?
I did.
Interesting.
And now there was a lot of African American and other nationalities there, but
Mhm.
I thought Caucasian women were very well represented in that rally,
Okay.
which I thought was interesting.
Mhm.
And she was not long-winded. She spoke for about 25 minutes.
Mhm.
Um, Now I got there. I didn't get there early because I had appointments. So the doors opened at noon. I think I got there at 3:15. She
Mhm.
probably spoke at 3:30.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, so which I was it was pretty cool. I wasn't
Yeah.
I got what I came for. So very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Um, and then of course, since then, we've had a second
Assassination attempt. Yeah.
what do you make of that?
You know, I I don't know. There are crazy people, like mental stability is real. Like that people are not mentally stable
Yeah.
sometimes now, and they're not rational. Um, I don't know what this dude's attempt was, but his son is like, this is not who my dad is. So I don't know. You
Yeah,
know,
it's a really strange
very strange. And
political climate.
yes, and what I was watching the news tonight because I know you're gonna ask me a question. I'm like, I need to get up to date on something. Um, and they were saying both attempts, both people were either had voted for Trump previously or were registered Republicans. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't I just don't know. I can't put my finger
I,
on it.
I and that's the part I didn't get. That's the part I
Mhm.
didn't get was, and is this like you said, maybe there's some mental things going on
Mhm.
with both of them and that type of
Mhm.
thing. But the one thing for me, Michelle, and it's funny, this is the Real Money Coach show, but we've been real political lately. I
Yeah.
guess because it's election season, but it was that they had these guns
Yes, they
that
had guns.
shouldn't have
Yes.
had, that they should
Yes.
not have had.
Mhm.
Uh, when you think of the last school shooting,
Yes.
this teenager had
Mhm.
a AK-15 or
Yeah,
whatever it
yeah,
was that he shouldn't have had.
yeah.
So I really think that we have to seriously start thinking about, what does gun control mean? And when you think about, people always say the Second Amendment gives us the right to bear arms. And this was the interesting conversation about that, was when that amendment was written, there was no police force.
Right.
There was no organized army.
Right.
And so that's a whole different situation than what we have today.
Yes, because you don't need an AK-15 to go hunting.
Right.
Why do you need an AK-15?
Right. So very, very, very serious situation. Very serious situation. And, you know, and I feel for our schools, and you know, it's a different environment.
It is.
We used to have fire drills.
We
right?
did.
Now
And tornado drills. Yeah.
Yeah, now and tornado drills.
Mhm.
Now they have active shooter drills.
Yeah.
And I think
And
it's sad in many ways. It's sad in many ways.
weird. Yeah.
Yep. So, but anything going on that you need to, any announcements you need to make that you have?
Next week I'll be at Appy Camp. So I'm pretty excited about that, which is the camp for accountants who are turning to become educators. So, you know, delivering keynote speeches and workshops and writing and things like that. So I'm excited to go have this unique experience.
And just right up your alley. I mean, that's just that's going to be great.
Yeah. So hopefully I'll learn some stuff, you know, and you know, which will make me a better educator. So
So, well, I tell you what, I got a big travel schedule coming up. I like Atlanta, Cincinnati, home, Cincinnati, Fayetteville.
Wow. At least you know somebody in Cincinnati, like, you know.
Yes, get to see my grandson that was here for a week.
I know he was.
Yeah, so in Cincinnati, I'll be at Lincoln Heights Baptist Church on next Wednesday, a week from tomorrow. I'll be at the Heart of a Woman's Conference next Thursday here in Charlotte. And then the following week, I'll be in Greenville for the Professional Women of Upstate. And then I'll be in Fayetteville for the Mary Kay Overflow Area Conference. So,
it's the fall retreat.
It's the fall retreat.
Yes.
Yeah, so
I love Mary Kay. Like, the fall retreat.
It's a great organization. It's a great organization. So listen, we're going to get to our topic tonight, which is the Project 2025 Department of Labor, talking specifically about DEI and critical race theory and so those things. We have a wonderful guest, Kevin Thomas, that will be with us momentarily. So we're going to take a quick commercial break and then we'll come back and we will introduce Kevin to our audience. So you are watching the Real Money Coach Show.
Take control of your finances today with the Real Money Coach. Our free financial wellness checkup offers personalized insights and strategies to secure your financial future. Don't miss out on the clarity and confidence you deserve. Visit www.therealmoneycoach.com now. That's www.therealmoneycoach.com right now to start your journey towards financial freedom. Your future self will thank you.
Do you have passion for your business but feel like your finances are falling short? Running a business takes more than a great idea. It takes a solid financial plan. Mitchell Consulting can help you turn your passion into profit with their financial advisory services. Get the financial guidance your business needs. Contact Mitchell Consulting to learn more about their passion to profit capabilities.
All right, Michelle, for those who are listening to this as a podcast, how do they contact Mitchell Consulting?
Sure. You can contact Mitchell Consulting at mitchellconsultingservice.com.
Awesome. And as you know, you can go to therealmoneycoach.com. You can get your free financial wellness checkup that you just heard on that brief commercial, as well as schedule appointment. And you also can get an estimate of your retirement tax bill, all there at therealmoneycoach.com. Listen, I'm excited about our guest tonight. He is Kevin Thomas. And Kevin is an experienced professional with over 18 years in training, coaching, diversity, equity, inclusion. Great leader. Just the couple of times that I've been around him and been around his work with the CRVA, which is the Charlotte Regional's Visitors Authority. Kevin is just a great guy. And what I'm excited about tonight, too, is also hearing more about his traveling Black History Museum called Black Experience 365. And he's going to tell us more about that and his work there as an artist and as the founder and brains behind the Black X 365. So without any further ado, let's bring to the stage Mr. Kevin Thomas. Yeah.
How you doing, Tony? How you doing, Michelle? Thank you for having me.
Good.
Oh man, we're excited to have you and to have this very important discussion tonight.
Yes, discussion that's needed
for sure. And so we want to welcome Doris Aldrich. Thank you for being here tonight. Listen, this Project 2025, we've been kind of debunking it. We've talked about the Department of Education, criminal justice. We've talked about the Department of Revenue and taxes. And one of the things that in the Department of Labor portion of this, 925-page document is further elimination of DEI initiatives. There is language about abolishing the critical race theory training. It is the removal of EEO, one data collection, and so forth. And so we think that that's going to make it harder for government entities to hold employers accountable and those types of things. And so we just want to have a little discussion surrounding those things. And you as a experienced DEI officer, what's your thoughts about the current environment in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion? And if you could explain to our audience exactly what that is too.
Tony, so to explain DEI, we got to kind of take a step back and look at where we come from, how far we come in the DEI field, where we at currently in the DEI field. So DEI 20, 30 years ago, we looked at DEI completely different than how we looked at DEI today, right? DEI was normally kept in the back rooms, or normally HR. You do one training a year, you put up a couple of diversity posters on the wall, we check off our box, and we call it affirmative action. You hire a couple of females, you hire some minorities, and we done our due diligence, as an organization. But over the years, that started to expand. And really what took hold was when George Floyd happened. You seen this explosion of DEI and what it means and what it looks like, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So it went from this framework of like affirmative action and making sure that we're hiring minorities and women in the workplace. But now expanding beyond that and looking at how we create policies and procedures to really impact the lives of those minorities and women and individuals in our workplace. And that's where you've seen this huge explosion after George Floyd. Now, whether companies did it because they know it was the right thing to do, right? Or they did it because they know it was just going to be the thing to say they bottom line. The problem was when George Floyd happened, it happened into a generation of people who are entering the workforce where they are considered the first native justice, the native social justice, generation. They were born into social justice, right? People like us was taught social justice. It was something that we learned as we got older. We really wasn't learning about social justice issues in that way and taking really care of it in the elementary or middle school. These individuals who are entering the workforce, this Generation Z population, they're native justice natives. And so they were so passionate about what happened and with DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, what that looks like. Diversity meaning, how do we make sure that our populations and schools, employment is diverse, that we have a representation of the community that we look like. Inclusion, how do we make sure everybody has a voice within the organization? They feel included, they feel heard, they feel listened to. Inequity, how do we make sure we are removing barriers for everybody within the organization so they have equal opportunity to rise and be promoted and move up inside that organization? Companies started to see the benefits of DEI and really started to embrace it. And so you started to see this huge influx of DEI directors being hired, right? DEI programs being developed, schools starting to create DEI departments, and you really start this real big shift in the DEI world. Well, recently, within the last 2 or 3 years, you saw that shift back. The pendulum is shifting back to where we want to keep it quiet. And you're starting to see schools banning DEI. The University of Florida is one of the schools you just seen that happened a couple of months ago, where staff woke up that morning, went to school, and the whole department, 21 staff, was just sent home because that whole department was disbanded, right? You have here in North Carolina, our education system and schools within the education system banning DEI practices because you have the practice of DEI is being looked at not from a business perspective, but from a personal perspective. And what I teach in DEI is to make sure that while we all have our personal reasons why DEI is important, and for me, I'm a Black male, education is the reason why. I grew up in poverty, so that's the reason why I do this type of work. For others, it may be LGBTQ, it could be religion, it could be mental health. We all have our personal reasons why DEI is important or not important. But for an organization, that personal driven DEI is not based on a lived experience. It's based on data. And so your data should tell you, what are we doing? What are we not doing, right? Based on the data. And if the data is showing this is where we need work, this is why DEI is important to us. And so companies and individuals are now making decisions not based on data, because I have always challenged individuals who are struggling with the use of DEI, maybe don't see it as a benefit. I challenge them to say, show me a piece of data that tells me women in leadership positions is not beneficial for an organization. Show me data that shows me diversity within your organizational structure that's living and working in a diverse community is not beneficial to your company's return on investment. And you can't find that data. Well, I can show you plenty of data that shows you having more women in leadership positions greatly enhance your opportunity to increase profits, right? I can show you plenty of data on that. But because we are not looking at the data, we're looking at our personal reasons of why we don't like DEI. Because this is a personal thing, then we need to ban it. And so you see this shift from DEI, from this quiet place in the back of the HR rooms, to expanding and exploding with George Floyd. But now you're starting to see this shift back, and that shift back is happening because a lot of people are using their personal beliefs for whatever reason. And despite the data, right, we can have different opinions, but we can't have different facts. Despite the data that's presented to them, they're still making these type of decisions to where now we see DEI starting to be disbanded. And you see things like in Project 2025 is being created, not based on data and facts, but based on personal lived experiences.
And you said something there, right? You said the facts don't differ, right? The facts. And so you're on the screen with a couple of numbers people, right? We like, the numbers don't lie. Look at the data. And the data will tell the story. And so I love that. One of the things I was wondering is because there was also this movement of adding the B to it, right? So diversity, equity and inclusion and belonging had started kind of coming through. And now, of course, as you just mentioned so eloquently, that we're shifting back away from that. So how does a organization who may want to still do the right thing from a corporate citizenship standpoint, even, how do they navigate this new environment where, where the data isn't being collected, or there is Project 2025 has a push to remove some of the data collection. So how does a company navigate that? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, one of the ways I deal with DEI, and I've been in this field for about 9 years now, and that's the director of DEI, as you mentioned, for the Charlotte Regional Business Authority here in Charlotte. One of my tasks is not just trying to convince the minds of those who don't think DEI is important, that it's an important issue. It's also working with those individuals who think it is important and making sure that they're not using a hammer to get their point across. And so I have this approach. Are you going to use the scalpel, or are you going to use a hammer? Right. And because, it's easy to use the hammer. The hammer makes a lot of noise. It gets a lot of attention. It gets the rah, rah, rah. It gets people excited. But for me, it also leaves a big mess that you have to try to clean up on the back end. But the scalpel approach, it takes longer. It takes time. It's consistent. It's thorough. It's time consuming, right? And you're taking your time and you're being very diligent and you're being very pinpoint about what your initiatives are and what you're doing. And while it may not make a lot of noise, it may not gain the biggest attention, but in the end, you have a chance to leave a masterpiece, right? And so we have to try to look at this from a lens of a scalpel. And what I say is being very systematic about what type of programs that you're doing. So when I spoke to the fact of data being what should tell the story, the data should lead your initiatives. When I work with companies about DEI, yes, I can say as a Black man, we should focus on Black and minority issues within inside this organization. But maybe the data don't speak to that. Maybe the data is saying mental health is our number one issue with our employees. Mm-hmm. And that's what you focus on, right? You take the personal out of it. And so in the school system, I mentioned this in North Carolina, I had a coach and an athletic director contact me, and they said, Kevin, we want to create in our athletic department with our student athletes a DEI council. But we're having trouble because we can't call it diversity, equity, and inclusion because of the laws and they're banning it. Mm-hmm. What can we do? How can we do it? And I told this coach, you can change the name, but it's not just the name that they won't change. It's the work, right? The name is the name, but it's the actual work that you're doing. So you have to be creative. Instead of looking at the hot button topics, right? Everybody wants to talk about race. Everybody wants to talk about LGBTQ. That gets the butts in the seats. It gets people excited, right? It brings the rah, rah, rah out. But when you're looking at education in the education system, what about mental health? What about women in sports, right? What about education? What about poverty and student poverty? So social, economic, student poverty, women, education, mental health. Nobody, despite your personal grievances about DEI, will come out, no athletic director in this country, whether they like it or not, will come out and say, I'm against women in sports. Mm-hmm. I'm against education and support in sports. I'm against working with students in poverty in sports. I'm against mental health. That's career suicide. But if you put those 4 topics on the table, and then you come from the point and say, do you know that these 4 topics represents the DEI spectrum? That DEI is bigger than just Black and white, is bigger than just gay or straight, right? And so you have to be very creative about how you approach DEI and speaking to the point that DEI is bigger than just the hot button topics that you see advertised on TV, or you see inside the local magazines, or on the radio, and things like that. DEI is bigger than those hot button topics. And so really focusing on the data and looking at how the data is telling your story for your organization. If your data is saying we need to deal with mental health for our staff because they're having a lot of concerns around that, then it's your job as an employer to be able to focus on that. And then you can use DEI as a strategy to help develop mental health programs for your organization. And it kind of helps take away the stigma that DEI is this quote unquote bad man within the organization that's trying to take away jobs from one person and give jobs to another.
Well, it's very interesting because as you were mentioning athletes in sports, and I was thinking about, God rest their souls, some of the Kenyan athletes that kind of lost their lives due, and they were athletes. I mean, and we see more of that. We see even economic disparities between the WNBA and the NBA and all these different things that are happening out there that are issues that I think need to be addressed for sure. So it's all economics to me too, right? So it's like, when you're mentioning, mental health, I think about economic health, financial health, and these types of things that are impacting the workplace that we need to deal with. And I love the fact how you describe it. It's beyond, black, white, male, female, gay or straight. It's a lot more complex and deep than that. But that's the shiny object. That's the thing that, like you mentioned, that gets people's attention. That's what you see posted on social media and that type of thing. And you mentioned some of the things that if you were to say it would be career suicide. For most people, there's one or two that it would still be okay. They still be okay. They say whatever they want to say, and it still be okay. So
and that was in the context of the, as an example, like I said, with the with the sports, right? I tell people, one of the analogies I use, sports is one of those mechanisms that created an environment where people who once couldn't sit in the same restaurant because the color of their skin now sit in the same stadiums and cheer together because of the color of a shirt, right? And so sports was able to create that. But if you were to take DEI, what DEI represents, opening opportunities, providing equity, providing access, right? If you was to take sports and go back to the period where you didn't have DEI initiatives where blacks and whites couldn't play together, how much money or impact you think the sports would have today? What would you think this would look like today if you took that out of it?
That was the whole thing about integrating the Negro Baseball League. I mean,
exactly.
It was a money move, right? For sure. I mean, it was, and unfortunately, many of those black baseball owners, those teams were taken advantage of and that type of thing, and didn't get what they were due, just in order to play in the big leagues. And I wonder, even as we have this movement away from DEI, what will it do for coaching ranks? I mean, as we were talking about sports and how the NFL and some others have that you have to interview so many minority candidates as part of the interview process, seeing a lot of those things going away. And I think just had a conversation recently with someone that talks about how they have to be a little bit more creative and how they do their recruiting, for example. So you can't go out and say, give me all of the black candidates. Let me, but you can say, give me all the A&T graduates. I mean, so you know what you're going to get. But I think it's just really has changed the landscape. And if some of the things that we're seeing here in terms of, these barriers that may be imposed that we're already seeing a shift from with the Project 2025, it's going to be even bigger. So now I want to do this shift though, because I think this is great conversation. But one of the things is abolishment of the critical race theory. And it kind of leads me into your passion with the Black Experience 365 Traveling Black Museum. I really want you to talk about that, because when we were at the you were sharing a little bit about that with me when we had a conversation a few weeks ago at the CRVA conference, and we were talking about you coming on the show. You were telling me about it, and I was really excited about it. And so I'd like for you to share a little bit about that with our audience.
So the Black Experience 365 Traveling Black History Museum. I love art. I'm an artist myself. I love Black history. Uh, Anybody who worked with me would tell you sometimes you walk into my office, it's like a Black History Museum at work. And I've always had this dream of being able to kind of have my own museum around Black history and teaching Black history. I went to Johnson C. Smith University in Charlotte. And
The Golden Bulls are 3-0, by the way. The Golden Bulls are 3-0.
I'm a Golden Bull. I've always had a passion for Black history. And what really kind of made me move forward with this passion, with this vision, I've been collecting this art for the last maybe 8, 9, 10 years, designing my own stuff. I developing art myself. Also going out and curating art and different artifacts representing Black history. What you see here on the website, a lot of the work, every picture up here is one of the pictures that's represented in the museum itself. For me, it was important to use this as a platform because in the schools right now, you talked about critical race theory, there's a conservative effort to ban African American studies within the schools. They are making this effort to say we cannot have African American studies taught inside our classrooms. And I cannot, for one, understand why certain school systems and certain individuals in leadership has decided that it's okay to attack that. And somebody said it's not personal. And I said it has to be personal because you're not attacking any other history. You're not saying we need to ban Jewish history inside the school. You're not saying we can't teach the Holocaust inside the schools. Matter of fact, we must teach the Holocaust. Matter of fact, you got to write 10 papers on the Holocaust and watch this movie about the little girl stuck inside the attic, Anne Frank. And if you don't, that's a problem. And so for me, it's more about making sure that my daughter understood and kids like her understood that while they are learning about those individuals that lived inside the White House and they're learning about their lives, the people that built that White House is just as important. And so teaching our history in the Black Experience 365 is not just me going out and trying to blame white people for what happened to us in our history, right? Which is the reason why they try to ban it, because you're blaming me personally when I had nothing to do with it, which is why we're taking it out of the school systems. It's more about highlighting the individuals during these time periods. So this museum, this is our first year. We have our first open to the public museum, October 19th. Information will come up on our website in about 2 weeks, how to register and how to sign up for the open to the public museum. This particular exhibit is called Born to Make History, and it expands on Black history from ancient Egypt all the way up to, like I say, the Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. So you start off kind of in ancient Egypt, you move through Africa, you go through the Atlantic slave trade, you go through slavery, you go through Jim Crow, you go through civil rights, and you kind of end up in the modern times. And during each one of those sections, we are highlighting different people, different experiences, different movements. And so it's a 2-hour experience where the first hour you are going through the museum exhibit. It's over 125 artifacts, paintings, artifacts that I've curated over the years and things that I've developed myself. After that first hour, you are going through this experience with those in the room with you. The second hour is all about the conversation. So after you spend an hour looking at the exhibit and really processing that, we sit down as a group and we have a conversation, a very deep conversation where you can be vulnerable, you can be open, you can be honest about your feelings and how you feel about Black history. And I give a deep, passionate story of when I fell in love with Black history. But it's important for me to keep this story alive because we have kids. They need to understand where they come from. And as I travel like you, Tony, and go around, I can talk to people my age, people older. That's my mother's age. And I can talk to people that's my daughter's age. And you'd be surprised how many of them do not know their Black history,
Mhm.
right? And that, to me, that's just the fight of making sure that I'm doing my part to keep this alive. So it's a passion for me. I'm excited to open the museum. And people say, why would you make it a traveling museum? Well, everybody can't travel to Washington, D.C., right? And see the African American History Museum. Everybody can't go to Memphis and see the Civil Rights Museum. I go to these different places. So people don't get a chance to maybe see some of those
Or
things. So I
Nashville,
wanted to bring it to you.
National Museum of African American Music.
I've been there. I've been to these museums more than once, and so I wanted to bring it to the people. Right? We bring it to churches, we bring it to schools, we bring it to businesses, we bring it to libraries. We will bring the museum to you. We are traveling. We will travel across state lines. We want to bring it to you. We set this beautiful museum up, and we present it in a way that is, passionate and educational. But it's an experience, and we're excited to bring it out to folks.
Well, I have a question for you, particularly, and I'll let you get into Michelle if you have some questions. But you said October 19th, and there's more information coming on the website. We understand that, but where is this going to be on the 19th? Can you share that?
It's going to be at a hotel here in Charlotte, so we're finalizing those details with the hotel as we speak. So that's why I said in about a week we'll have the information.
Locally,
it would be here in Charlotte, definitely in Charlotte, in the hotel. And we're finalizing the details of that and getting the rooms. This is a big exhibit, so we make sure that we have to have enough space to host it. It's about 28 tables full of, like I said, beautiful artifacts and things. We have over 35 easels that has art on it, 28 tables with artifacts. And so we have to have a room big enough. And I let people know this when you want to partner with us, we need a location big enough to be able to hold all that. And also have the location to hold the conversation. And so for each, we try to keep it at 50 per, viewing, just so that people can have space to walk around and not be so overcrowded. Sure. We had our first kind of private viewing for Spectrum Charter back in June for Juneteenth. We did their Juneteenth kind of celebration. They contacted us and hired us to come out. And we did a smaller version in one of the smaller rooms of the museum, and then had the conversation. Some of those pictures is on the website as we speak. You can see some of the different things of the people who went through that from their staff. It was a staff-only event. So we're the one in October is open to the public. But organizations can contact me now and say, hey, we want to bring this to our job or to our organization, and we'll be happy to bring it. But the one that's October 19th is actually open to the public. So as we speak, we're working with Johnson C. Smith and Barbara Scotia. Barbara Scotia here in Charlotte, Concord, that was shut down. Go back to the reaccreditation process. They also reached out to me, a member of their school, wanting to be able to, how do we partner to bring this out to Barbara Scotia. So we're working with schools as well to bring this exhibit out.
Well, it's great. We got to get you, because I could see this also, very much being, HBCU tour, and that type of thing as well. How many days will it run when you bring it? Do you know?
So the one on October 19th, it's going to be a one-day event. So it's going to be an all-day open Saturday event where people can sign up prior to the event. It's only $25 a person to come. So we don't make it expensive. It's no $150 to show up to the museum. We made it very affordable for people to see it, because we don't want to exclude anybody, right, and price anybody out. So our goal is to make sure people are comfortable when they come to the exhibit and they see some of these things that we have. And we have some real cool, unique things that I've created and developed. We have things from, say, Joy and the Truth's living room, that you get the chance to look inside her living room. So folks who don't know who Joy and the Truth is, she has a whole exhibit about who she is and what she was about, right? You can see the Harriet Tubman exhibit. We actually have a replica gun of the gun that she would carry. And I tell a cool story of how she carried this gun. And you will be able to see things like that, at the exhibit. So we have some cool things that's really, really educational, impactful, and cool, but also at the same time, we have some tearjerkers. People get really, some folks got really emotional during the exhibit. So the picture you see with the guy holding, that's one of the directors at Spectrum. He showed up, and we allow people to put the chains on. Those are 250-year-old chains, and he put them on his hands, and he was about tearing up, because he was like, slaves had their hands inside these chains, And here I am, in this room, a director with a suit and tie on with these same chains. And this is why they sacrificed people like him to be where he's at today, right? And so we had some deep conversations during the exhibit.
Man, I gotta do this because I see him in the chat. I gotta put a shameless plug in for my friends Tavia and Derek Jackson. We need popcorn for this event. You need popcorn for this event. You need some popcorn for this event, especially for the Black Experience 365 Traveling Black Museum. There we go.
That's right.
Well, man, I'm excited. I'm going to put that on my calendar. And I'm very prayerful that I will be able to come to that Saturday and even bring my grandson and be able to experience that. I think that's a wonderful thing that you're doing, and it's one of the positive things that I think about, because as we talk about this election season and the division and the elimination of we talk about the critical race theory and all this. This is something. And that's what I hope we all do in terms of whether we're talking about the election or we're talking about educating our people, is that we find what we're passionate about and educate our people. And, my prayer for you is that your passion will turn into a profit. Right? That's it. And so I love seeing that. And I want to thank you for just taking the time really at the last minute, coming, sharing this. And please make sure that we have the information so we could share it within our network, when we get closer and those tickets are available on your website and all that type of thing, so that we can support what you're doing. Because I certainly have appreciated your support, having me, come and speak and do workshops with the CRBA. And I think this, what you're doing is wonderful. So.
Holly, thank you again. I look forward to working with you, at the CRBA. Me as director of DEI, one of the things I do in that role is, I don't do all the trainings. Yes, I'm a national trainer, but I told my job, you're going to make an investment. Well, you're not just me and Kevin do all the trainings. We're not doing that. My job is to direct. And so the process is, my company is great. I would say the CRBA is an example of how DEI should be running the organization, right? It's not just a program. It's embedded inside our principles and our core values, right? Inclusion is one of our core values. And so we believe in it at the organization. But one of the things I like to do in my role is, as you know this, I reached out to, a lot of individuals, minorities, and wanted them to come in and do these trainings and make sure that they get paid for doing these trainings, right? Things that I can easily do myself, but making sure that we're making an investment to tell that story, because the more voices who are speaking this work makes it that much more relevant and that much more important. So I'm excited. It's fun about working with you. The things that we talked about, I'm getting ready to give you a call so we can talk about what that's going to look like moving into the fall and the rest of the year around helping some of our staff. I'm excited to work with you and others. And, Michelle, I hope I get the opportunity to sit down and talk with you and see how we can also bring you in. The more voices, the more people we have within this work, the better it's going to take everybody to try to fight back against this, fight that they're doing to try to ban what's so important and what's so needed. But I will say this, I don't think it's going to work, because they are fighting a movement. And, the more you do it, those schools that kind of ban those DEI departments, they are catching black right now. I would say the word I want to say, but they are catching pushback from a lot of students, and they're trying to be creative with the language. Maybe we don't call it DEI, we call it something else. They're trying to be creative because they realize, making that rush movement of banning something just because you have a personal belief system that you don't believe in wasn't really beneficial, because it affects so many other people. So I do think that we have a lot of folks in this country who think things like DEI are so important, and they're not going back. They're not going to let it go away. The social justice movement is real. My daughter, she's not growing up the way I grew up. I'm not growing up the way my mother grew up. My daughter's living in a whole different environment. And when she gets older, she's going to look at people completely different than the way, I looked at people and her grandma looked at people. And so I have hope. And people like her, even though she's only 12 years old, she gives me hope that the future is bright. DEI eventually will be. Thank you, guys.
I love it, man.
Appreciate
I love it. I love the diversity. Michelle, anything you want to add before we?
I mean, I love that you're thinking outside the box and
Mhm.
how you have incorporated like the DEI concepts into like your life and your framework, because you're showing it out loud with the Black Experience 365, right? I just pray that you can take it to more places than just North Carolina, because people around here, we need it too. So yeah.
Awesome. Let's load up the semi truck. Let's go.
I know, right?
We're really, yeah, we're actually, I'm actually looking in the mall right now, looking for a cargo van, because I'm like, I got to get something. I need storage. Yeah, I got too much stuff. And so as we look to take it on the road, I want to travel from here to California, presenting this experience to everybody. So when I say travel, we mean traveling, not just traveling up and down, Independence Boulevard here in Charlotte. I'm talking about hitting the road and really bringing it to people everywhere. So we're excited.
Have your semi wrapped and just take it on the road.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, listen, thank you again, Kevin, for coming in, sharing with us. It was a great, rich conversation. We're excited about the Black Experience 365 Traveling Museum. Excited about and just really proud of the work that you're doing in DEI. And whatever label you decide to give it, whatever companies decide to do in terms of label, it's the work that's important.
Mhm.
And so keep doing what you're doing. We appreciate it. And with that,
you guys
have a wonderful, awesome evening. Thank you for joining us again. We'll be back here next week, same time, same place, Tuesday night, 8 p.m. YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of them things. Y'all have a good evening.
Have a good night.
Thank you, guys.
Everybody.